right, we'll go ahead and get started here. I know more people will be joining us here as we kick things off. But first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining today's webinar, Wireless Power and Recharging for the Next Generation of Active Implantables, presented by Resonant Link. We're glad you're joining us today. Should be a pretty fun conversation. And I'll introduce our presenter in just a minute, but I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar before we start. So for this webinar, we'll have both the Q&A function and the chat function open if you wanted to send us a message or you do have questions for our panelist, Grayson. Either of those is fine. We'll save some time at the end for questions. So if you do ask it during it, we'll more than likely wait till we get closer to the end for that Q&A session. This session will be recorded, and we'll be sending a link to everyone who registered today. It will be available to watch. So if you're not able to stay for the whole thing, no worries. You'll get a copy of it, or you can also share it with your colleagues, friends, anyone who you think should be watching this information as well. And one last note, we do have another upcoming webinar on November 9th. It's titled Artificial Intelligence in the Medical Device Industry, Emerging Issues and Best Practices, and that's presented by Covington. I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. So everyone who is interested, you can register for that as well. Now I'd like to introduce today's presentation. Will be led by Dr. Grayson Zulauf, who is the co-founder and CEO of Resonant Link. Grayson has deep expertise in wireless power systems, specializing in wide bandgap semiconductors for next generation power electronics. He has held electrical engineering, product management, and executive leadership roles throughout his career, joining Motive Power Systems as part of the first team to electrify commercial transportation before co-founding Resonant Link in 2017 with the vision to power health for all. Grayson holds degrees from Dartmouth College and a master's and PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University. Grayson has received multiple accolades, including the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, Forbes 30 Under 30 Energy, and the 2022 Dial Fellowship. That's a pretty impressive resume, Grayson. So now I'll hand it over to someone who can speak a lot more eloquently on this topic than I can, Grayson Zulauf. Grayson, take it away.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tyler. And thanks for having us on the Medical Alley webinar today. So we'll be talking about the next generation of power and energy for active implantables for the next 20, 30 minutes here, and then really eager to hear the questions from everyone attending today. So instead of just focusing on wireless charging alone, which is what we are focused on at Resonant Link, I want to zoom out a bit and focus on the broader power and energy landscape for active implantable devices. The challenges in power and energy, the opportunities, and I think most importantly for all of us that are building these active medical implants, how these power and energy constraints, the technologies, and our choices as designers affect the patients that live with these devices every day. So if you think about a pacemaker, a neurostimulator, a heart pump, those are fundamentally energy transfer devices. So when we think about it, and admittedly, we are a large team of electrical engineers that love the idea of energy transfer, but really at their core, an active implantable device is an energy transfer device. We're trying to take energy from somewhere and use it to treat an indication for a given patient. And so when you start looking at what this energy transfer concept actually means, the goal of an active implant is to transfer inside the body, most likely, the energy stored in a battery to a treatment or a measurement or a diagnostic site in a way that we've proven will stimulate an action, will block existing electrical signals, or a piece of important health data. So this is really what we think about as the core of the inside the body energy transfer. And we'll get into some caveats as we go here, but this is kind of the centerpiece of that. When we keep zooming out, we can extend this energy transfer structure to getting that energy from the external world into the inside the body world, the implanted one. So we're likely to have a battery outside the body, and we need to get that power inside the body, maybe using a wireless power link. And I want to note here that most of the devices on the market today are not rechargeable, but this energy transfer has to happen anyways. And how does that energy transfer happen? Well, we're using, maybe you could call it a mechanical energy transfer of a surgeon that's taking a battery that's been recharged and replacing the implant battery through surgery. And so that's another energy transfer mechanism there. And so we can keep looking at this, and the observant people will look, okay, how does the external battery get recharged here? And we can kind of finish this full energy flow diagram, at least to the level we'll want to take it today. So all the way to the grid where a patient might be recharging the external battery, their external charger hub, connecting it to an outlet to recharge that battery. And so now with this diagram at this level, we have energy flow from the source, or as close to the source as we want to take it, to the treatment site, where we're making the life of a patient better and longer. And really, for this conversation today, we're going to focus on two pieces of this energy flow that define how patients interact with active implants and what's possible in that patient experience. So the first of these two areas is the energy transfer between the external energy and the implant stored energy. How do we get power or energy from the external battery shown here, or maybe even from the grid, to the battery inside the body? And then secondly, how do we get power to the treatment site? So from that implant battery to where we want to deliver stimulation, measure something, or have a diagnostic. And we'll notice at the very beginning that there's really an overlap between these two. And this design choice will have a major impact on the patient experience at this implant battery. So this is how we're going to think about how we deliver energy, how we deliver power, and how these impact the patient experience. So first, focusing on this recharging or replacement of the implant battery. So in this picture, because at Resonant Link, we focus on wireless power, we've shown a wireless power link for the recharging. But there's actually three ways that we might deliver this piece of energy transfer to patients. If we have an implantable battery, we can transfer energy to that in one of two ways. We can swap batteries using the surgeon's arm to get energy inside the body. And with a rechargeable cell, we can transfer energy through wireless charging using a magnetic field, as shown here. The second mechanism that we might use is a drive line, which has an implanted wire that delivers energy to the battery directly using electrical transfer of energy. And those are most common for really high power devices like ventricular assist. And then lastly, some devices on the market, especially peripheral nerve stimulators, bypass this implanted battery altogether and deliver external energy directly to the treatment site. And so without this energy storage, we can't deliver treatment when that external hub isn't present. But those devices have eliminated this storage stage, and a lot of those are rapidly gaining market adoption. And so kind of going from the engineer point of view to the patient point of view here, how we choose to recharge this battery basically defines how invasive and how inconvenient the patient experience is going to be when that battery inevitably runs out. If you have a drive line in your stomach, that's constantly invasive. If you have a surgery to replace the battery, it can be dangerous, and it's definitely inconvenient at the time of the surgery. And then wireless charging or direct wireless power is completely non-invasive, but depending on the time that we have to spend recharging and the difficulty of alignment, could be quite inconvenient for the patient and frustrating for them. So that's kind of the first way we think about the patient experience here. And the second way that we think about, the second mechanism that has a big impact on the patient experience, is this transfer between the implant energy storage, the battery, and the treatment site. And so this energy path, typically we have some power conversion stage between the battery, the stimulation circuitry. We've got the stimulation circuitry itself, and then we've got the leads and the paddles that are used to interface with the treatment site, the connection at the treatment site. And in the end, this kind of all sums up to the efficacy and the efficiency on an energy metric of the treatment itself. And so different treatments will have different energy requirements. We see in neurostimulation quite a bit of innovation on treatments that are less energy intensive, but equally efficacious. And that's really the goal, is to find the most efficacious treatment for the least amount of energy required, and then to deliver that energy to the site as efficiently as possible. And again, going back from kind of this engineering view of energy transfer to the patient view, this is really important because this just determines how often we need to recharge that implant battery. So if we have great energy efficiency, we'll recharge it less, or we'll need a surgery less, or maybe we can have a smaller implant, and maybe even some combination of those. And at the core, we have to remember that recharging or replacing this battery is often invasive or inconvenient, or both. So no matter which mechanism we choose in that part of the patient world, when we're looking at how we're delivering energy inside the body, we want to minimize the frequency at which we have to replace or recharge the battery. So we've got these two energy transfer mechanisms. We've really looked at it from an engineering perspective today, kind of this abstract point of view. And we'll get more into how we actually might design devices here to make it the best patient experience possible. So you've got this blue highlighted one outside the body to inside the body. This really determines the invasiveness and the inconvenience of recharging or replacing. And then you've got the implant battery to the treatment site, or the measurement or the diagnostic site. And this determines the frequency at which we have to recharge the battery. So we've broken down kind of how power can be used by active implantables, options and drawbacks for replenishing it, and really how our power and energy build choices impact patient quality of life. And so we know that the best patient experience is both non-invasive to recharge or replenish that battery, and it's infrequent. It happens as infrequently as possible. So let's look at this on a graph, and we're going to get more into the details of which devices are in different quadrants of this to link these two sides of the energy flow. So on the vertical axis, we'll have this invasiveness or this inconvenience of getting energy from outside the body to inside the body. So we've got a drive line. That's going to be kind of the least convenient way of continuously providing power. We've got wireless charging, which is non-invasive, but depending on how fast it is or how easy it is to use, can be quite inconvenient. Then we've got surgery, which is, no matter how straightforward the surgery is going to be much more invasive and much more inconvenient than holding up a charger outside the body. And then on the horizontal axis, we're going to have power delivery to the treatment site. How often do we need to recharge or replace this implant battery? Might be never. Maybe we have a forever battery. That means we never need to worry about it. It might be once every 10 years, like a lot of the devices that are non-rechargeable today. Could be every week, could be every day, or like really high power devices, we might have to continuously provide power to that. So we combine those two axes, and we'll start to think about where devices might fall. At the bottom left, we've got the best quadrant. Recharging is never or very rarely needed. And when it's done, it's non-invasive, convenient, easy for the patients. And we've also got places where we know devices aren't going to exist. And we'll start by talking about some of these dreams, or some of these kind of never categories. So we know an implant battery has to fit inside the body. So we can't just keep increasing and increasing the battery size until we never need to replace it in a patient's lifetime. And so until we get forever lasting batteries, until there's a huge breakthrough in energy density, that very, very left side isn't going to exist. And then we also have this non-starter for patients, where we would need a surgery every week or every day for a device to work. There's a number of devices where the intended use of device is very short, but they're starting to verge on this category. but we're certainly not signing up any patients to have a surgery daily, weekly, or monthly here. So the first realistic device here is a ventricular assist device, where you need to have a lot of power in the body, so much power that a battery that fits inside the body or inside a particular place in the body just can't provide it. And so that is in our always during treatment. And it's a place that you need a drive line today to continuously power that. The second place that is the zone of most devices on the market today, primary cell devices. So we need an invasive surgery once every 3 to 10 years or so. So you'll see pacemakers here, primary cell neurostimulators, really any device that has a battery replacement surgery. So we're to the left on the horizontal axis. It only happens on the time scale of years, but it's quite invasive when it happens, when we need to go for this surgery. And then lastly, we've got rechargeable neurostimulators and most rechargeable devices on the bottom right, where wireless power is needed anytime the treatment's given or daily, weekly, monthly basis to recharge the implant battery. And this is where we want to make things less inconvenient and have these happen less frequently. And that's really what Resonant Link is working towards. So today, most of the devices on this graph are in the top left or bottom right parts, where they've got infrequent but risky and costly surgeries once or twice a decade, or really frequently recharging weekly or monthly that needs to get better to make the experience more convenient for the patient. So our goal in Power and Energy is really to move devices down into a non-invasive and a convenient recharge scheme that's saving lives by eliminating surgeries, eliminating hospitalizations, eliminating infections, and to the left, where recharging is easy and fast and simple. So if everything were to end up in this bottom left quadrant, like, why aren't we there today? And so we want devices that don't need to be recharged often, and when they do, it's super safe, super fast, and non-invasive. And I want to talk about some of the challenges here that we're all working in the implantable device community to overcome and to really help improve this patient experience. And so the first one is the implant battery. And here, these sit at the core of almost every single active implantable device, with the exception of some that are externally powered. So two metrics here really define the patient experience. We've got recharge speed. So most lithium-based batteries can safely be recharged in 1 to 2 hours. So that means that patients, no matter how small we make that battery, patients need to spend an hour or two recharging every time the battery runs out. Doesn't matter how fast the external charger is, doesn't matter how small the device is, doesn't matter how energy efficient the rest of the system is. We're really stuck at this kind of 1 hour limitation of most lithium ion batteries today. And I think what we're really excited to see at Resonant Link is more and more batteries that are coming on the market that increase these recharge speeds from 1 to 2 C rates to 3 to 5 C rates with some improvements in traditional chemistries, all the way up to 5 to 10 C rates. And for those of you that aren't as familiar with the battery C rates, a 10 C rate means you can charge the battery in 1/10 of an hour, so in 6 minutes. And these really fast charge batteries can reduce that time from, say, 1 to 2 hours at best down to 10, 15, 20 minutes each cycle. And so patients spend less time charging every day or every week if the rest of the system can support it. Secondly, energy density of the battery. That determines the second part of our equation here, how often we need to recharge. And implants, we know, want to be as small as possible, as non-invasive for the patient and for the surgeon as can be. And that size is often driven by the batteries themselves. So we want to squeeze as much energy storage as possible into as small a volume as we can. So there's some exciting developments here that are taking place, including really flexible batteries that can be built into the structure of, say, a titanium can, and improvements in energy density among more conventional technologies here. The second thing that I want to highlight that Resonant Link is not exclusively focused on, but has a big impact on the patient experience, so we care quite a bit, is the stimulation delivery. So the energy needs of the treatment and the efficiency of delivering that energy. If we have a maximum battery size, this will really determine how often we need to recharge or replace the battery. And so neurostimulation, especially, you see a big influence on power utilization by the treatment type. You've got high frequency, some 0 hertz, some more conventional styles on the market. That has a big impact on it and is a big area of innovation. And then the utilization that each patient needs will vary quite widely for these more continuous treatments. And so generally, when we're thinking about this piece of the delivery, we know we're going to need to serve the highest need patients without rationing. So there's this drive to improve the stimulation style. What is the most efficacious treatment at the site for the least amount of power? And then the stimulation delivery. How are we actually converting that and delivering the stimulation that we know? And this has a huge impact on how often patients need a recharge or a battery replacement surgery. And then the last technology innovation piece is wireless charging, and that's really our focus at Resonant Link. This has a huge influence on invasiveness and inconvenience of current rechargeables. For neurostimulators on the market today, wireless charging is the single most frequent patient complaint above every other piece of the system. And I think for many of us, that's not actually that surprising once you spend time around patients using. So, one of our partners recently shared a story with me. His wife has a spinal cord stimulator, and she struggles so much to align the charger. Every day she has to recharge that eventually she just gives up in frustration and asks her husband to come over and try to figure out how to line this up in a very narrow window on her body. And this recharging experience is so difficult that many physicians prescribe primary cell devices instead of rechargeable ones, which means that they're opting for a surgery for their highest risk patients instead of subjecting them to their current recharge frustrations and likely non-compliance with recharging because it's so difficult to line up and make sure it works. And so that is completely the wrong direction on our chart of the best patient experience. It's more invasive, more inconvenient when the battery runs out. And that's really the problem that we're focused on charging at Resonant Link. How do we get more rechargeables into the world? So the future of this energy and patient experience is what we want the community to build, and we want to bring this small piece of great wireless recharging. So we need infrequent charging needs, simple and fast charging, hopefully never needing a surgery to replace a dead battery. So we kind of think there's like the dream future out there. So we've got lightning fast, super simple recharging for batteries. Or maybe you've got a forever lasting battery, which would be nice and would change the equation here. And then depending on how often we need that, we want an always available treatment with all the power that every single patient needs for their treatment. And these are kind of this far future dream state, don't exist yet, but we can already radically improve the patient experience through better power and energy. So how do we make implantables less invasive, less inconvenient, less dangerous? First, moving primary cells to rechargeables, making these rechargeables easy, fast, seamless, so every patient can benefit from a rechargeable device. Secondly, eliminating drive lines for VADs and for other high power devices, so we can have wireless power for all of these devices and eliminate those infections and the hospitalizations that come from them. And then we want to improve stimulation efficiencies without sacrificing efficacy to keep making those recharge needs more and more infrequent. And then broadly, we've got continuous improvement of batteries, charge rate, energy density to unlock completely new high energy need treatments with great batteries and great recharging. And Resonant Link is already working on many of these axes. Really, we want to make bioelectronic treatments better for patients. And so the last part of this conversation today, I want to share what we're already doing at Resonant Link to improve the patient quality of life for rechargeables. So we serve as the partner and power to over 20 leading OEMs today to improve the patient experience for every device through better power and better energy. We really think the tools, technology, and the team are what set us apart. Along with our core values, they really allow us to build this trust with world-leading OEMs across the active implantable space. That includes both more established devices and more established companies, all the way down to startups that are just concepting their new device, and we love to work with all of them. And these both have major impacts on the patient experience. And I want to just share a few case studies here to wrap up on how we're already improving that patient experience on these axes that we outlined earlier. So first, we're partnering and just published this at ASAIO this summer to transform this long sought after goal of eliminating drivelines for high power devices like ventricular assist devices. There's academic literature on wireless power for VADs from 1965, nearly 60 years ago now, and no one's realized this dream because it's so difficult to send tens of watts into the body without violating FDA temperature specifications. And so in just 9 months from when we started working together around this core MSRS technology breakthrough that we're commercializing at Resonant Link, we delivered a charger below those FDA mandated limits. It really gave our partner here, and you should read the abstract to see what Abbott had to share, a path to market that's been 60 years in the making. So this is directly taking a driveline and going to rechargeable. For new devices, we're transforming the patient experience with partners like Paradromics. So in this program, our charger was so reliable and so robust that they could completely eliminate their implant battery while still delivering the full treatment that their patients need and that their patients deserve. And as Curtis says here, their VP Implantables, that we can maintain sufficient power through thick tissue, which is critical for treating every patient, with a huge misalignment range. And you can see that kind of demonstrated in our lab GIF at the top right here. And size is something we think about a lot, miniaturizing these medical implants. And we can deliver chargers down to 3 millimeters. We actually just did one that's even smaller in diameter, about as big as the nose on the penny for the implant coil. So this allows these super miniaturized, maybe even injectable devices to become rechargeable, which allows them to be even smaller because the battery is most of the volume. And we can situate these closer and closer to the treatment site to make some of the issues with leads less burning. And so we're excited to share more about those rechargeable leadless pacemakers, sleep apnea treatments, spinal cord stimulators. All of those rechargeable leadless future devices are making patients' lives better and better. And then lastly, we just launched a platform that works with standard titanium can encased IPGs. And the goal of this is really to make every single implant rechargeable. So instead of 2 to 3 hours for recharging one of these that's currently on the market for most neurostimulators, we can recharge in 21 minutes. And it's so reliable that patients can be confident that they're getting that charge every single time. And we're bringing fast controls, big misalignment tolerance, and these really deep implant depths to these titanium encased stimulators so that physicians really want to prescribe rechargeables. It's so fast, it's so easy that rechargeable is the best way to keep patients living their lives. And a couple of quick pieces of data here. This is showing the recharge time in that 21 minutes for a 440 milliamp hour battery, which is quite a large battery, because we're charging at 2.5 watts of continuous power here. And the efficiency is reaching into the upper 80s here while staying well below those FDA limits. And we're shipping out demonstration kits for this that interface with our custom built software. So you can play with, change the parameters, see how the charging is working, and think about what it might be like for your patients to save those 10 days every year, going from a couple hours of recharge time a day to just 20 minutes. So we really want to build a better future for power for patients now. And our goal is to really use power and energy, fundamentally what we think is the core of an active implant, to make patients' lives better. So we'll get Tyler back and look forward to your questions, and let's deliver better power for patients together. Thanks so much.
And thank you, Grayson. So yeah, we'd love to open it up to some questions now. You can use the Q&A function. Also, the chat is open. I'd love to hear from everybody that's attending this, where you're tuning in from. It's always great to see. So feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from today. We've got several questions here. I'm going to jump into this first one. You just spoke about advancements in power, or how advancements in power and energy can improve the patient experience. Can you elaborate on how people are able to use your technology while moving around when maybe they haven't been able to before?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've spent a lot of time developing really high bandwidth controls. And then also our core technology allows us to expand the misalignment range. And so people actually can walk and can run while getting continuous power transfer into their body. So instead of, you think about a spinal cord stimulator today, it's like 2 hours on the couch to recharge, sometimes even 4 or 5 hours. For us, it's 21 minutes while cooking, while going on a walk, while living their lives. And that makes a huge difference for someone's time every week and their quality of life.
Questions are flowing in already, which is great. I love to see that. So a couple of people have asked if the slides will be distributed. So this webinar was recorded, and it'll have all the slides on there. I guess, Grayson, if you're maybe you could share if you're willing to share the slides as well with folks.
Yeah, we'll definitely have the webinar recording posted, and then we can get the slides distributed as well.
Perfect. So on our end, on Medical Alley's end, we can help distribute that as well. So for those who are asking, that will be available as well. Someone asked, for ventricular assist devices, what is the maximum power your system can transfer continuously without running into skin heat problems? Or are there other problems that skin heating that limits the maximum energy transfer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we can do about 20 watts. We can go even higher with pulse power today. Really depends on that full system design, right? So you can go higher power. We have electric vehicle chargers that are much higher power. Inside the body, we've gotten to about 20 watts continuous. And really, you're looking at that full tissue temperature rise. So it's not just on the skin, it's all the tissue that you need to send power to, or that the device might be nearby. And then there's also SAR limits and other FCC limits that we have to comply with, and that we do testing and validation to with our partners.
Another question, Barry asks, what's the maximum implant depth achieved?
Yeah, so we've gone to about 10 centimeters in implant depth. Really depends on what our partners need there. Sometimes they're quite deep implants, and we work with them to make that possible.
Sure. I know there's another question on the safety guidelines. What are the safety guidelines in terms of magnetic fields?
Yeah, so there's a number of safety guidelines. We follow the ones that our customers need to have a safe product and get compliance there. So we're looking at different IEC guidelines, different electromagnetic compatibility guidelines, different FDA guidelines, and making sure we comply with all of those.
And I'm switching between the chat and the Q&A because they are both in there. Someone said, can you comment on the grade of the titanium for the IPG case on the last example of 21-minute recharge?
Yeah, so we have worked with grade 1, grade 2, grade 23 before, and looked at a couple of other grades. That one, I'd have to check on the exact grade of what we're using there, but we analyze all different grades and often recommend to our customers which grade will result in the best recharge experience there.
Awesome. And yeah, keep those questions coming. We have a lot more coming in here.
Yeah.
This one is localization technique necessary to locate the RX coil position, as over the period of time it can have both angular misalignment and lateral misalignment.
Yeah, so both, and I think just to make sure I'm understanding that question, we've got both kind of, okay, are we aligned where the implant is on the body, and then how are we aligned like with the shape of the body or how the implant is installed there. And so we analyze all of that up front. Like angular misalignment has similar but not exactly the same impacts on wireless power transfer as lateral alignment. So actually, some of our partners have devices that can be implanted like with full rotation. And that's when things get really fun. And those are the tough problems that we love solving. But we do look at angular alignment, we look at lateral alignment, and make sure that we're going to be able to send power to every patient.
Someone was wanting to know, do you have any of your technology, has any of your technology been used in commercial products yet?
We have a few customers that are through animal studies and are going to market. We don't have one that's commercially available for human use yet.
All right, let's see. So I'm trying to sort through all the questions here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Someone following up on the 10-centimeter implant depth. Where in the body did you achieve that 10 centimeters?
That is like in the torso area. I don't think I should say more for just confidentiality reasons, but somewhere in the torso.
Sure. Someone said, someone calling in from San Diego said they're familiar with the QI standard used for smartphone charging. How is your technology different? I don't know if you want to kind of comment on that.
Yeah, so the Qi standard that's widely used in consumer electronics has like a very particular frequency, has standard coils and standard chipsets that are becoming more and more common. And that's really so we can have cross compatibility if I buy a particular charger with a particular phone. So we have built chargers that are compatible with the Qi standard, and we work with smartphone OEMs actually kind of outside our medical business to make that charging better. But most of the medical chargers are at different frequencies, and that's to get great wireless power transfer into the body. And then they also use our proprietary coil design techniques with the MSRS to get much better performance, have much higher efficiency, and much lower tissue heating. So some people want to be compliant with Qi for medical devices. Generally, cross-compatibility isn't a major concern or a major focus area. So we typically are optimizing the design for the use case.
Sounds good. A couple more kind of follow-ups on the 10-centimeter depth. Someone asked, can you achieve the 10-centimeter depth power transfer with a smaller implant for providing continuous power?
We basically will take these platforms and do kind of light customization for customers. So we'll look at size constraints, we'll look at implant depth targets among a host of other parameters, power, misalignment, external size constraints, all sorts of different things. And so I won't say like this is exactly what we can do for that use case beyond what we shared in the case studies, but we'll work with partners. We do an opportunity study process. It's a 5-week program that basically analyzes the exact use case and helps people customize their design there.
So Paul has mentioned in the chat here several constraints to this that have not been discussed: implant depth, grade and thickness of titanium, thermal tissue injury due to device heating, etc. He's asked if this technology has been proven in an IDE with the FDA.
Yeah, so like I said, we're still expecting that first in human commercial device kind of toward the end of next year. Those are all things we look at, and like those have to be solved in animal studies, which we're through, and definitely for full FDA approval there. So we look at implant depth, we look at titanium heating, we definitely look at all the thermal tissue heating, and that's really a core constraint. SAR, we look at rotation, we talked about. So yeah, there's a ton of constraints. We like to think putting wireless power into the body is like the most challenging environment in the world. You've got tissue constraints, you've got all different body types, different places we're going to do the implant, rotation, very, very strict temperature limits. And that's really what we thrive on, is taking all those constraints and getting something great for our patients.
Someone was wanting to know where they can see the spec of your product. Is there somewhere that's available?
It's on our website. Yeah, there's a data sheet for download there, and then we're happy to send over more information as well.
Yeah, you've got your website on the slide there. So for anyone interested, feel free to check out their website. Let's see here. Someone was just kind of asking about standards and regulations. What standards and regulations do you follow, and how do these vary from maybe one country to the other, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we work with our partners there to uh, understand where they want to commercialize the technology, and then we'll work with them on the applicable regulations there.
Okay, going through more questions here. I appreciate all the questions from the audience. This is
A lot of great questions. Amazing.
Audience we've had in quite a while here. How sensitive is your technology in relation to how close your coils are to conductive surfaces, leading to extra power load?
Yeah, so that's something we put a lot of time and energy into understanding. I think there's no question having metal, electronics, all of that nearby has an impact on wireless power. People that say otherwise, I don't think fully understand that space. The goal for us is to minimize that impact and hit the specifications that our partners want. So, for example, for medical devices, a lot of people want the coil on top of electronics, a very sort of thin vertical stack up. So we have a lot of IP on how to do that, how to shield the electronics from the magnetic field. Another use case is inside a titanium can. That's super, super common, and the titanium can impacts wireless power, and we need to design around that in a number of different vectors. So metal nearby, electronics nearby, batteries nearby, tissue nearby, all have an impact on wireless power. And those are all things that we analyze and design around.
A few more questions here as I'm going through them here. Dinesh asks, okay, let me see what on wireless power, are you saying you could use either 6.78 megahertz or 13.56 megahertz, or it would differ based on applications?
Yeah, thanks, Dinesh. So yeah, in medical devices, we've gone all the way down to tens of kilohertz, all the way up to 27.12 megahertz. For Dinesh's specific question, like 6.78 megahertz, 13.56 megahertz are international radio frequency bands that are set aside for radiators like wireless power. And so those are very common bands for our customers to want to look at because it eases the regulatory pathway worldwide.
Another question that came in here in regards to the RX antenna being in skin layers, underneath fascia, underneath muscle, etc. Where do you typically see the most success for transdermal recharging?
Yeah, so I would say, want to be careful here. So we're not surgeons, we're not experts on where the devices should be implanted. Typically, we will take an input from our customers there. Hey, here's the pocket that this is going to be implanted in, or here are the different patient types. And then we'll make sure it'll work for them, and we'll analyze those different tissue types. We're not going to weigh in on that. We'll generally listen to our OEM partners who are the experts there and have physicians on their team.
Let's see, more questions are coming in here. Do you only deal with wireless power transfer, or do you handle telemetry as well?
We have data integrated into our wireless power link. So telemetry is included there, and we can send about 100 kilobits per second bidirectionally through the power link. So it's actually a great way to get rid of some other communication antennas and boards and all of that you need. And a lot of our customers just rely on the Resonant Link wireless power link to send data in and out of the body there.
Another question that just came in for ventricular assist devices. Can you place the rectifier electronics inside the ventricular assist device, or do you need to have it closer to the receiver coil?
I'd say let's take that one offline. We'll have a more detailed conversation about the particular design constraints there.
Sure. Let's see here. A couple of people had questions on specific slides and asked if you could show the second to last slide. Is that a 2 degrees Celsius rise with 2.5 watt transfer through titanium was the question that Brett had.
That is, that's correct, with the exception that we have the receiver coils integrated into the header there. And so you can have the receiver coil either inside the titanium can or in the header. This particular platform we've done inside the header there. So the titanium has an impact on it, but we're not sending power through the titanium can per se.
Let's see here. For your wireless data transfer, is this also limited to the 10 centimeter near field link?
Yes, we send that. I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, we do send the data over the power link, and we operate in a near field regime there.
Okay, let me sort through the questions here. If anyone has more questions,
yeah, amazing questions. These are awesome.
Active questions here. These clearly people know their stuff. Someone had just asked, do you sell off the shelf or non-custom medical recharging products?
Yeah, so this platform that we've just launched is our aim to have a standard platform there, and so that is an off-the-shelf development kit that can be purchased, and then we work with our manufacturing partners to make that an off-the-shelf device recharge design.
Another one, someone asked, what is the current lifespan of the batteries, and how many recharge cycles can you perform while maintaining performance?
Yeah, so we don't make the batteries ourselves, but we do partner with a number of different companies that integrate batteries with our chargers for rechargeable devices. And so those, range quite a bit. I think we've seen everything from hundreds of cycles to high thousands, and some of the new technologies you might even be getting above 10,000 there. So it ranges quite a bit, depends on C rate, depends on temperature, and we're happy to have a more detailed conversation on battery type and who we might work with there.
Someone was wondering, one of the first examples or first example images shown, did that show a receive coil integrated onto the titanium face of an IPG?
Yeah, so for titanium enclosed IPGs, we can put the receive coil either in the header or inside the titanium can there. So those are both design possibilities with different trade-offs for each of them.
Another one here. Let's see, they keep coming in, which is great. Since you can adopt 13.56 megahertz, then that would open up the market for your solutions to a wider range. Let's see. Okay, I guess there's maybe not a question.
That's correct. Yeah, we're super focused on medical devices today, but our wireless power has a lot of awesome applications, and so we really want to transform the patient experience, and medical's our focus right now.
Someone asked, can you say anything about how much current you were able to deliver at the 10 centimeter depth that was previously mentioned?
Yeah, I guess for the specification specifics, I'd say like we should chat more after, and it really depends, like size, it depends on implant depth, it depends on misalignment. All of those have a factor into data rate, factor into current that we can deliver, power that we can deliver, efficiency, all of that. And so I think for those, we should just chat more after, and feel free to drop me a note at this email, and then we can kind of dive into the particular use case there.
Sure. Let me just see if there's any more kind of general ones. I know there's gotten some specific ones here that, like you said, maybe are better discussed in an email. How do you limit heat during charging? Is there a current limit feature?
Yeah, so for medical devices, we typically design to make sure we'll never exceed safe limits there. And then we also have sensing on our system. Obviously, you can't sense tissue everywhere. So we have to guarantee that by design. And then we have sensors around our system to make sure we're in a safe operating mode.
And I'm just checking the questions here. Feel free to send any last minute questions. We've got to do a few minutes left if people do. Let's see. Are the implanted resonant link coils in the 15-watt range MRI compatible?
The ones that we built above 10 watts so far have not had MRI compatible as a requirement. So those are not. We have made a number of MRI compatible systems, and we can have those be MRI compatible. There's trade-offs in design if that's a core requirement. But we basically work with customers who say, hey, do you need this to be MRI compatible, and to what strength of field and what standard? They'll say yes, or they'll say no. And then we work with them to design the implant side to make sure we reach that.
One more here that's coming in for high power applications. What is the typical efficiency levels? And they say, of course, depending on distance between coils.
Yeah, similar to what we showed for the titanium cam platform, we're kind of in the low 90s, 80s for peak efficiency. Typically, we're not optimizing a design for end-to-end efficiency. We're optimizing the designs for minimum tissue heating, which ends up with a slightly different wireless power link. And that is a little bit different, but the short answer is kind of in the 80s and touching into the low 90s there.
Another one that came in from Ryan. I like this one. Are there good product examples today, or maybe that you're working on, that guide the patient in a quote coil alignment experience, which would allow the patient to visualize the alignment quality?
Yeah, so I think we would love to make that better. I think some of the things on the market, you see belts today, you see vests today, hats. I've seen a few ideas on the BCI side. I think, and then you kind of have an indicator on the device itself. I think that's something we'd love to work with a partner on getting better and better. Right now, kind of the thing that we can control just on the wireless power link is that you get full power in the whole alignment zone. So Ryan, thanks for we'll follow up with you after to chat on that user experience design, which is super important.
A couple more here. Let me see. How does the implantable coil connect with the rest of the implantable system other than the battery?
Yeah, so we I guess the simple answer is basically from the implantable coil, we're gonna convert that power to either recharge a battery, to run a stimulation or a pump or whatever it might be, or do both at one time. And so that kind of connects through some power electronics and data circuitry to the rest of the system.
We've got two more that I think we'll probably wrap after the last couple here. Have your technologies ever taken an NFC approach to recharging? And they said, if not, why?
We have done some designs with NFC, not in the medical space. We've mostly done that in the consumer space.
And then the last one from Bryce. What type or types of wire do you typically use to wind the coil on the receive side of the implanted link?
So with the MSRS structure, we build these a little bit differently than most people build wireless charging coils. So we actually build these with these stacks of foil and dielectric that alternate in layers. Those can be built with PCBs, standard PCBs. Those can be built with multi-layer ceramic capacitor processes, or we could actually realize those with Litz wire or solid wire. So we build all different types depending on what the application demands.
And I'll do one more here because we got just a minute. Matt asks, or he says, lots of complex and perhaps variable impedance in the path between TX and RX. How do you manage foreign object detection?
Yeah, so we actually have the only industrial wireless charger on the market with foreign object detection today. So we spent a lot of time and energy on the very high power side developing that. For our medical applications, very few of our customers want or need for an object detection. When they've asked for it, we have an impedance-based, just like you're alluding to, an impedance-based method for doing that.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up the Q&A here. This is a great great active group here of a lot of questions. If you do have more questions, Grayson's email is up there on the slide, so feel free to reach out to them. You can also reach out to anyone here on the Medical Alley team. Grayson, you want to have any last words that you want to leave the audience with before we send them on for the rest of their day?
We just want to make power better for patients. So looking forward to working across the industry to make that happen. And Tyler, thanks so much for having us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for lending your expertise and sharing more about your work. And thank you to everybody who attended today. There, as I mentioned at the top, there will be a recording made available of this. So that'll be sent out within the next day or so. And we can also help for those who are interested in the slide deck too. We can track that down for you as well. So again, thank everybody for attending today. Thanks for the great amount of questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.